I chase down a bright star falling from heaven above. If it changed my a four-leaf clover, salt over my shoulder, a little prayer whispered aloud for all of those someones, yes, even this one, who could all use some help. Where are the rainbows when I need one to wish upon? While the rain is gone.
Where Are the Rainbows? We get another great tune from her coming up momentarily. Right now, we'd like to bring her on and have a chat with her. Come on in and say hello, Loretta.
Hi.
Loretta, are you with us? Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you doing?
So glad to have you here today. Wonderful of you to stop by. Thank you so much. We just listened to Where Are the Rainbows, and what a beautiful song that is.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's great to be on. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. I was reading before we went to your song. I went through some of your background, which is pretty impressive with your reviews that you've gotten and the awards. I mean, you're pretty strong back there in the lower New England, New Jersey, Connecticut areas.
Yeah, we've been out there for a while now, and we've been having good time.
It sounds like it. I'm sure that a lot of people enjoy your music too. Of course, I'm an ex-neighbor of yours from upstate New York, so I'm familiar with that part of the world back there. And
okay.
we'd love to see you branch out and maybe travel around the country a little bit, like specifically Florida, where my co-host John Bon Jovial is, and maybe out here in the desert sometime. Any plans on doing some traveling?
We would love to. It's a possibility. We do get out there once in a while. We do. We don't travel too far out of our area often, but we will. We like to plan something now and then. We do have little anchors here at home, but we would love to come out.
Well, keep us up on where you are and where you're going, and we'll definitely spread the word to our listeners. And if you make it to either of our areas, definitely like to get out and meet you. Tell us a little bit about your background, where you came from as far as your music, and what's your inspiration for your songs.
Well, I started when I was a teenager. I started writing. My influences, probably, there's so many to name, but I guess like lots of female singer-songwriters of my generation, I was a big fan of Joni Mitchell and Joan Baez, James Taylor. Carla Bonoff was a very big influence for me, too. So many. My inspiration for my songs is just life. Honestly, it's just the life, my life, the people around me, the world, the world we live in.
That can be a source of that can be a big source of inspiration.
Oh,
there.
absolutely.
Although your music seems to have a far more soothing sound to it than some of the stuff that's been going on in the world around us lately. I know. I was reading in your bio that you've had some personal challenges of your own, and that your music has kind of helped you find solace in that. And the reviewers have seen that; they've heard that describing, the fact that. One wrote that you're heart-driven, soul-filling folk Americana, and I kind of think that pretty much sums it up. It's a really nice listening sound. John Bon Jovial, you're sitting there. I know you're just waiting to get in here and ask a question or something. You've got something on your mind, I can tell.
You mean chomping at the proverbial bit here.
That too, yes.
Well, Loretta, I just want to kind of add on to some of the observations that David just had, in the style of music in relation to all the things that go on in the world. And to me, your music has a very, I don't even know if this can be specified as such, but an ethereal effect. It is very soothing and it's comforting. But there's a certain effect to it, and I'm not sure just exactly how old you are, and I know it's always impolite to ask a woman how old she is. At least that's
it is very so. We won't go there.
That's the old school that I come from, but
I come from that same school.
Yeah, but if you're like me, you may have wandered around in the '60s with a psychedelic gleam at all times in your eye, and so.
Well, maybe not the '60s, maybe a little bit later than that, but still, 60s. I think I was a little too young to do a lot, but it was almost.
But I got.
But you mentioned some names that reach back there.
Oh yeah, well you mentioned Joni Mitchell and Carla Bonoff as a name that I have not heard of in a long time, and very much loved listening to her music back in the day, and I can hear. The effect. You don't sound like them, but I can hear the influence, and that's really a nice thing. And again, there's just that ethereal quality to the song that we just listened to. So I like that. Don't really have a question per se. Oh, you're welcome. I don't really have a question per se, but it was just an observation. As David will tell you, I handle more of the technical end of things here at the show, and I'm always curious about production values. I'm a big analog fan, and I'm an analog man living in a digital age. But there is an overall warmth to the song, and I can hear in the production that perhaps you used older analog equipment or something that would emulate that effect.
Well, we did try to go for a very, just for the old-fashioned style and sound of that recording. It was done digitally, though. We don't have analog. My husband actually recorded that. He has a studio, and we did all the recording there. Excuse my voice, everyone, too. I'm fighting a head cold here, so that's why I'm trying to get the words out here. But for that particular song especially, we were trying to go for a certain sound. We really wanted to give that old style, almost 20s kind of sound in there. And so Gary really did try to, capture that. And I think he did a good job.
Oh, he did. He did a wonderful job. It has a certain warmth to it that you just don't hear in production anymore because production is just too clean. And I know that sounds like a weird diss of digital production, but it is there's just a certain warmth that you don't hear in the more technologically advanced recordings of the day. The stuff is almost too clean. And
everybody is into electronic effects and
the techno pop.
Right.
Too sterile sometimes.
Right,
That's
I
it.
agree.
That's it. Too sterile,
Agree.
and yours isn't. And not to say that your music is germ infested. I would never go.
But a germ.
Well,
it does have
today. It would be.
But it does have that old school.
Is.
Yeah, it's got that old school feel to it.
And I'm happy for you that you're getting your cold out of the way before the real winter weather sets in. It's good. I think that'll serve you well. Maybe you can get through the winter without one of those nasty colds or flus or something cutting you down. But there's a beyond John's technical analysis there. I was thinking there's a wistfulness in your song that you don't hear in a lot of music today. I like that. It's beyond comforting. It's really catchy, listenable, and it makes you want to hear more. And hopefully, our listeners will seek you out and find more of your music. Where can they find you online, Loretta?
Well, you can find me at my website, LorettaHagen.com. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Spotify. Of course, I'm on Facebook. Reverb Nation. I'm out there. You could find me on Twitter. There's lots of places. Just Google my name and you'll see videos and whatnot.
There you go.
Yeah, and you can find my CDs on cdbaby.com. We have a music conference coming up. It's called NERFA. It's the Northeast Regional Folk Alliance, and it's just a weekend conference that. It's attended by all artists and presenters and DJs and what have you, and it's in Connecticut. And, we look forward to getting together with all the other artists in the community and getting seen and heard. It's kind of like that's how we get seen and heard. We do showcases, and we, hopefully we'll have someone book us after they've seen us. It's the goal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that's coming up. It's and we have a few shows coming up soon too. We have a show on November 3rd in Pennsylvania, the Acoustic Brew Concert Series. But you could always just go to my website and check that out if anyone is interested and come to see us. It'd be great. We'd love to see you.
And I'm sure there are people out there. I'm glad you went into your appearances because that was going to be my next question. Where you're traveling in the near future. I'm glad to see that. Nothing against the beautiful people of Connecticut and New Jersey, but I'm glad to see you're venturing beyond that. I remember being an upstate New York guy. I remember. Back in the old days, back before telephones, and no, it wasn't quite that old, but I can remember back in the early days of the folk renaissance in the United States, which would that would put it in the 60s. There was a place up in Saratoga Springs, New York, called Cafe Lena, which that was the place where especially if you were a folk singer. If you wanted to make it, you had to play Cafe Lena. You weren't a successful folk singer until you played Cafe Lena, and they are still open, by the way. So if you ever get up that way, you might want to try and stop and do a show there. That I think if I was a folk singer and I was in that area, I would want to go there and record an album just for old time's sake.
Right.
Just to bring back the name, and I'm not trying to pitch Cafe Lena. I have nothing to do with them, but anyway, listen. In the minute or so that we have left, and it might be a short minute because, we just get going here. In the time we do have left, tell us about this final song we're going to play of yours called "Lucky Star."
Okay, "Lucky Stars." That's the title of the newest CD. Lucky Stars came out of, it started saying when I was in the hospital, I did have surgery, and it's just a thank you, and not just the surgery. Lucky Stars, the CD itself, it was kind of born out of unfortunately, a lot of sad times. I lost my mother, I lost my sister in a very short time, very close to each other, and it just, there's a lot of the reason for the CD, I think, for me was just a lot of healing. And
Sure.
Lucky Stars is just a song that I wrote as a thank you to all the people who were there for me. And, you know, just to, and I thank my lucky stars for them all.
Well, we're very